The last story is made by the original creator of Final Fantasy, Hironobu Sakaguchi, along with some other Final Fantasy alumni, and you can really see that throughout the game. It has Final Fantasy vibes all throughout it, from the art style to the HUD, and a little bit of the combat animations and style, along with some of the monster designs, really remind me of Final Fantasy XIII, especially the Seath monsters. According to Wikipedia and the Last Story Wiki, initially the concepts for the game were released back in 2003. The game is an ARPG, action role-playing game, developed by Mistwalker and AQ Interactive, and published by Nintendo for the Wii in 2011, except for North America, where it was published by Xseed Games and released in 2012. Development took 3 to 4 years, as Hironobu really wanted to make this different from his previous work and other games out at the time. The story was originally based in science fiction, but due to Nintendo's insistence, it was changed to be primarily based around fantasy. Although slated to be a Japan exclusive, the title was a commercial success and received generally positive reviews worldwide. While the gameplay was met with praise, opinions varied on the story and graphics. The story focuses on a group of mercenaries and Zale, your character's dreams to rise from the bottom to the top to become knights, and the twists and turns that come along with an adventure in an unknown place. After receiving a mystical Mark of the Outsider power, very dishonored I must say, they were even released in the same year. Zale becomes involved with a noblewoman named Callista while fighting in an ongoing war between humans and beasts called the Gurak, led by Zangurak. There's also a mystery surrounding the very island they are on, Lazarus. Zale must navigate the ways to become a knight, deal with the others he meets along the way, use his powers for the right reason, help his friends with their lives and struggles, and uncover the reason why the world is dying and the mystery of Lazarus Island. There is a lot more to this game than it lets on. It gives the game a good length, and it has a lot of motivation to replay it, especially with the new Game Plus. There's also multiplayer modes and co-op, but I'm not looking into those here, as I'm using an emulator and I don't feel like trying to find enough people to play the multiplayer, and the multiplayer on the Wii itself is not available since Nintendo shut down Wii online features in 2014. So I'm running this in Dolphin, a Wii and GameCube emulator, which actually Dolphin was the working name for the Wii, I think, back in the day. I have it set to 16:9 aspect ratio with 920x1080, which is double the native for the Wii, so things may look a little better and a little sharper than the original version of the game. It's not a bad looking game. Things don't look overly fantastic, I must say, but it's a Wii game. I'm not expecting it to be God of War or Assassin's Creed beautiful. All of the cutscenes are pre-rendered, which allows them some beautiful moments with real emotion and depth conveyed throughout some of the cutscenes. They tend to be a little long, and they do feel like they drag out a bit though. There's also just text and voiceover cutscenes as well, and those are pretty funny. The narrator is really good. I want to say that what is here is done well. Though the enemies, while not super varied, do look good, and the NPCs around town are unique, and you can interact with almost all of them, along with the shopkeepers and the merchants you have to deal with. Your team NPCs look awesome, each having a distinctive style of armor and vibe to each of them, when you can customize their armors too. And there's a whole host of armor choices, although some characters can only wear certain types, like your mages can only wear magic boosting cloth type armors, your rogues can wear leathers and small metal armor pieces. It's a shame though that one of the best armors is just butt ugly. It's the dragon armor, and you have to collect 5 dragon skins to make it. You get it late in the game, and the set you have might already be powerful enough for what you want to do, so half the time you won't wear it until you can either upgrade it or, like me, I didn't use it. For me, my set I had on was strong enough, and I don't like not having the option to not hide the helmet. Personal preference, but I want to see the work that went into animating the talking and the faces. Even though you only play as Zale, you can customize every person's armor and weapons, including colors, upgrading each piece of armor to +5, to get the most out of it. Some materials are only available in the second playthrough though, or at least I think so. I may have missed them, but I'm pretty sure I could only get them in a second New Game Plus playthrough. You can buy or forge different armors, but I found one style that usually worked for most. You can also buy and forge weapons, although some characters again are limited to certain styles, like mages. They can only use daggers, and one character has a specific dagger that only he can use. So with using an emulator for this game, I'm using the in-emulator engine to recreate the Wii Classic controller with my PS3 and PS4 controllers plugged into my PC. It allowed me to remap and adjust controls that work best for me. It also means though that the prompts and buttons, while they are the same on the screen or will be different on the controller than maybe what you guys would use if you were going to play this. Combat styles can be changed in the main menu, but I'm using the auto attack mode where I just control the direction during combat, but the game auto attacks when it gets closest to enemies. Zale is the only character you can control in-game combat-wise outside of maybe 3 to 4 times when you control somebody else in pre-scripted events, which leaves your party to be controlled by the AI. Now the AI isn't the smartest, I often saw it running into walls, running back and forth, getting stuck, but they handle themselves good combat-wise once they have a target to focus on. Zale has a special lure ability called the Gathering, gained in the opening chapter, along with the Mark of the Outsider. And it allows him to lure all enemies in the vicinity close to him, which helps your casters and other teammates deal damage while they're mostly being ignored, and it gives them time to fight while you're either, taking on the giant group of enemies or running around trying to gather them up, pull them away from your teammates so they can get a chance to attack. Fights can range from action, tactical, and stealthy. Parties are made up from 3 to 6 characters. Each character has 5 lives or revives, and will automatically revive after a certain time if Zale cannot revive them manually, which consists of you using your lure ability and running right over them, and they'll automatically get up and not use one of their revives. Combat is real time and done automatically through it, although actions such as dodging and movement are done by you, which gives you some player agency. In addition to the standard combat, players can switch to an over-the-shoulder view for manually firing Zale's crossbows, which can launch a variety of ammunition types, and you will need to use the crossbow at certain points. But this is not to say with the auto combat that it's a pushover. There's some bosses that are really challenging and require some problem solving and patience to figure out how to beat them. The combat feels good, if a little floaty sometimes, but the hits are rewarding, the boxes are spot on, and in Chapter 11 you unlock an RTS style mode where you can gain a top-down view where you can direct your team, as we've seen in like XCOM, The Bureau, Dragon Age, just to name a few. I will say that if you use the attack option I did, the push auto attack, it can get frustrating when Zale just keeps attacking when you want him to dodge or to get in cover. That was a big gripe a lot of times, and it led to me taking unnecessary hits. There are also summoning circles, which are mini horde modes in-game that you can basically power level in that area, and you can fight wave after waves of enemies to get XP and loot. You can also compete in an arena which you earn money and items to upgrade your levels and your characters, your armor, your weapons, all that kinds of stuff. And there are rewards for playing up to 100 rounds in each act or each season of the game, but it's really a trial to want to stick it out, especially when one round can be 10 to 20 minutes, and that may be the only thing you can do if you don't want to continue on with the main mission at the time. That's something to think about. Because yes, you level your characters and you get items, but the time you have to put in, when it's really the same thing until the season changes, is really asking a lot. I think I played up to level 85, I think, in one season, and it took me a couple days, and I was just not having any of it after that. It was just too much. And even when the acts change, and by extension the seasons change, the only thing that really changes in the arena is an extra room or maybe slightly more challenging enemies, but nothing really changes. The dialogue is surprisingly witty with some funny cracks and cutscene moments here and there, but it's overshadowed by the flow of dialogue or the lack of flow. Maybe the flow is better in the Japanese version, but there were periods where they could have just ended the dialogue or ended the cutscene, or another character could have started talking, but it was just awkwardly quiet and focused on that. It was like it was stalled in, they finished their line something ahead of time. Also, sometimes the voice acting is just flat, and I'm not sure if it's a not enough direction to the actors or mistranslations for things, but it really, some of the lines just feel phoned in, which is stunning to me to see, because there's some massive names in here, like Alex Wilton Regan, who plays Callista, but she also plays the female Inquisitor in Dragon Age Inquisition, and Aya in Assassin's Creed Origin. There's Joe Watt, who is the Outsider, who plays Ciri in Witcher 3, Hawke in Dragon Age Inquisition, and Dr. Bryn Cole from Mass Effect 3, Nico Lennon, who plays Dagran, who's also involved in the Witcher series as King Radovid, and Dragon Age 2 as Carver Hawke. There's Nicholas Bolton, who plays Zangarak, which is Reyes Vidal in Mass Effect Andromeda. Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition, he is Mailhawk if you chose to go that way. And he's also involved in Dragon Age Origins. There's some real good talent here, which still mystifies me why these lines and why the acting is so meh sometimes. There's also questionable music throughout the entire game with boss fights. It didn't really fit for me personally. The rest of the music is awesome, and I do love the main theme when the sweeping grand orchestral pieces you hear every so often. The ambient music was perfect because I cannot remember a single thing about it, which means it did its job in being there, setting the mood, but not being obtrusive. In the last story, you play as Zale, a young mercenary who travels and works with his friends Yurik, Marania, Dagran, Lol, and Seren. She's my favorite. And their journey to become knights in Lazalis. Along the way, you make friends and enemies, you're jailed, poisoned, your life is threatened, you're confronted with a power-hungry nutcase, and overall just put in some tough spots. You battle the bad guys, you fight yourself, and overall, it's just a fun game, if not a grind at some points. Not to spoil the story here, because I think you should give this game a try if you can get your hands on it. But the story is engaging, although it has some branching parts that you can totally miss if you're not paying attention or exploring every single nook and cranny. And it doesn't affect the overall outcome of the game, it adds a little world building if you do them. The story is very predictable, but the journey it takes you on is a lot of fun. I will say though, the main villain is bad, but not nearly as annoying as the secondary antagonist, Lord Jural. And yes, his name is as annoying as it sounds, and you really just want to punch him anytime he comes on screen. I will say that I was a little disappointed that you don't get much after the credits. You just jump back in you jump into a new game plus. You don't get to go back and maybe finish any missions you had, or side missions. You don't get to go back and compete in the arena. It just drops you right into a new game plus. I will say there is a massive difficulty spike in the ending chapters, like chapter 30 and on, and you don't get to stop to upgrade really at any point. So you have to be happy with what you have and rely on finding more powerful things as you go through, which is not going to happen because you usually have the most powerful things you can have. Which would be no problem, but it doesn't tell you, hey, this is your final mission and you can't turn back from this. I would have loved a little hint like that. You don't get it until you're already in the mission and you come to a certain room. By then you can't go back and do what you want to do. You can't go play the arena to get some more stuff. It's like, hey, this is the final mission, but you're already in the mission, and suck it up. The big point that the game just about lost me was the fight with the Sentinel Beast Mitra, or Mitra, how you ever say that. I had to rage quit twice, and to me the Sentinel fights were way harder than fighting Zangarak. And the only thing I can do, or could do at the time, was be very patient and command your team well. It's not unfair, sometimes, it depends on the hit. It's just one of those things like you were so close, and they killed me every time, kind of like a Dark Souls or Bloodborne thing. It was just like so close, but you just didn't dodge, or you didn't do something right, or the game just decided, nah, let's not have you win this one. But the sense of yes, like yes, when you kill them, is amazing. Until my save state got corrupted and the game crashed during the cutscene, so I couldn't save the game either. But I somehow managed to fix it. I don't know how, but next time I loaded it up, everything was fixed and back. I have to say that it was really the only part that I almost walked away from this review. The same goes for the other half of Mitra, Atar or Atar. I will say both of these are very Bahamut looking, especially Final Fantasy 13 Bahamut. It's just very reminiscent of that style. The game has a main hub, which is an inn where you can save, catch up with your team, sell, trade, and sleep. You have an overworld which you operate out of, which is Lazarus City itself, where you can get your supplies, food, weapons, armor upgrades, side quests, collectibles, and other odds and ends that were not in main story missions. Aside from the market and other areas, the main draw is the arena, where you can, fight, get fame, money, and items that require for upgrading your weapons and armor. There is a level requirement to enter though, although that's just recommended and you should be fine no matter what level you get to the city as. You also get to travel away from the city and Lazarus Island to some pretty cool environments to do other missions, and you can also revisit them to do some battles, to level up and gain rare items as well. Although, like I said, after you do the final mission, you get dropped right back into New Game Plus, and you can't go back to these areas unless you unlock them again by playing again. It really pays just to walk around, explore, talk to everybody in town, find all kinds of rare items for your party and yourself, boost your personal stats. There's a lot of side quests and a lot of Radiant missions you can do. If you don't hunt them down, you'll totally miss out. Just like any Final Fantasy or really any RPG game out there. This is a good game, no question about it, and I grew to love the crew and the people in the city. The story though, although is generic, we've seen it before, rise from the bottom to the top, all the stuff that happens in between there, it was well worth the ride. It's an excellent JRPG, even though the animations are a little off sometimes, but I chalk that up to the Wii being the console it was. One of the ending scenes at the grave, could have been about 3 minutes shorter. I understand. They're trying to invoke some emotions in you, but it doesn't need to be there. Or doesn't need to be that long. It took me about 32 hours on one playthrough to finish, and I will definitely be going back into the New Game Plus when I get some time to see and get the materials I missed the first time. You get so many different unlocks, you just want to spend more time in the world of Lazarus. You can unlock more colors for your armor, you can unlock more armors, there's just so much to do in this game. So I recommend, if you can find it, pick this game up, it is so good.